Yeah, SMTV3 folks, you can start filming. Just so the council's aware, cable is down. There is no cable TV in Sierra Madre. We are still going to film. We can't broadcast because the cable's down, but the video streaming is working, and we will put it on our website and get it into circulation so people can see afterwards what we did.
And all our admonitions about what to do.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you should have done. And, all right, let's call this emergency meeting of the Sierra Madre City Council to order. I will note that all council members are present. There being one seat vacant, so we'll forego the roll call, and you can acknowledge that, Ms. Delmer,
yes,
for the record.
Yeah, I think the exact time that you're calling.
It's 12:10. According to the clock in here. All right. And with that, we are here to deal with an emergency declaration for the city of Sierra Madre. And I will ask the city manager, however, to provide those of us in the room and hopefully a few of our members, the local press, information on what we know to this point. And I will have a few comments about what we might expect in the next 24 hours. Madam City Manager.
Mayor, members of the City Council, as you're all aware, last night Sierra Madre was hit by a severe windstorm. The gusts of wind were measured at different points in the evening as high as 70 to 90 miles per hour in the canyons, and here on the flatland as high as 68 plus miles per hour. So we did have some, and these were sustained gusts. Because of all those winds, as you can imagine, if you've driven the roads today, we have hundreds of downed trees, literally hundreds of tons of debris on our roads. We still have a number of roads closed. We did manage to get Sierra Madre Boulevard, our main east-west route, open. We're currently working on Orange Grove is the next one, but that is not open yet. That is still closed to traffic. Our priority was to try to get the main streets open, and then we'll get into the neighborhoods. We did have some damaged infrastructure as trees came up. It took streets, it took sidewalks with it. Our wells were down for a period of time because of the electrical outage. We didn't have the electricity to power our water pumping system. Down power lines throughout the city. And the damage, we're now up to 31 structures reported as having damage. Those include, at this point, primarily, if not 100%, residential structures. Of those 31 structures, 4 were deemed somewhat serious. 2 have been red tagged, and 2 have been yellow tagged. So the red tag basically means those buildings are not habitable, and the yellow tag is people can go in and get their belongings, but it's also not in a very stable condition. We've had a few families displaced. In fact, one of the families is probably here in the council chambers. They did spend the night with us here in the council chambers. We did open up the EOC last night. We activated it at 12:30 a.m. And as of 7 a.m., as the Director of Emergency Services, I declared an emergency. At this point, with the item before the council, would be for the council to affirm that declaration. As you're aware, when the city declares an emergency, it sort of works its way up the chain of command. The county, we've been informed that the county is also requesting an emergency declaration. That goes to the governor. If the governor declares the emergency, at that point, that's when the city could receive funding to reimburse some of the costs we're incurring. The other important reason why emergency declarations are made is to enable us to do emergency procurement of services and goods. As you're aware, this emergency is going to far exceed the capabilities of the staff in order to respond and clean up and get the community back to normal. We will need to call in outside resources, and this emergency declaration allows the city to do that. The mayor will be talking a bit more about over the next 24 hours. I just want to give a brief weather report. The worst of it is not over yet. A lot of the trees, for example, and power poles have been weakened by the gusts from last night. For the next 24 hours, we are still expecting wind gusts of 25 to 30 miles per hour, some as high as 40 to 45 miles per hour. We just in the last hour, and it's been relatively calm, had another tree topple over because things are just weakened right now. It doesn't take much more wind to just be the last bit of wind needed to push a tree over. The EOC will remain staffed for the next 24 hours in order to be able to manage this incident. That does not mean we will only be responding to emergencies. It doesn't mean we're going to be doing any non-emergency things, just responding to emergencies only. And the police department did ask me to mention that overnight parking enforcement is suspended for the duration of the storm. So please don't call in and ask for an overnight parking permit because that will tax, as you can imagine, already taxed public services. The police captain and fire chief are both here this afternoon if you would like briefings from them. But that essentially concludes my staff report.
Do we have any word on injuries or problems? I understand that's so far fairly good news.
So far, it's fairly good news. We don't have any. I'm just double checking. As of most recent, we don't have any reported injuries as a result of the windstorm. So we're still doing okay in that area.
I want to take a moment just to thank all the members of our city staff who have come in here and been here late last night into the early morning, and some of them should try and catch a little bit of sleep because we've got another long 24 hours ahead of us. One of the problems with this at the moment is, as you know, nobody can watch this meeting. So we can't broadcast, but wireless internet does provide us with means of communications. And so I see members of our local press here, and I would encourage you to get these words of caution out to the community in whatever way that you can. The city will be communicating through the city's Facebook site, through our website, including press releases, through email blasts. We will also be having our general city phone number staffed for the next 24 hours, 355-7135. That will be staffed for non-emergency calls, but if you have some piece of information that you really need or you don't know where else to go, we can be available. That phone line will be staffed here at City Hall. But if it is truly an emergency, 911 is where you should call. But understand that 911 calls throughout the region right now that system will be heavily taxed. And I encourage you to tell your neighbors or to caution anybody who might want to call 911 to make sure they are doing it for emergency purposes. Because the wrong 911 call, if we're responding to a 911 call that really isn't, we may miss one or be unable to respond as effectively to one, I should say, as we might. So please be cautious with that. The other thing I think is important for everyone to understand is we don't know when the power is coming back on. It is a good bet that it will not be back on tonight. That means when the sun goes down, it's going to get cold, it's going to be dark, and people may be a little distracted, maybe a little nervous, maybe a little afraid. It is not, however, the best idea to go out wandering in the streets or trying to deal with your branches or debris at night when power lines could go down or be down and you don't recognize them. We also need the streets as clear as we possibly can have for emergency response. So talk to your neighbors and your friends if you see them deciding this is a good night to walk the dog. It probably isn't. We need the streets as clear as possible. That said, tonight we're not going to be responding to cleanup issues. We're not going to be doing a lot of cleanup tonight. We first of all have a very thin staff in Sierra Madre, as you know. We've got people wearing 2 and 3 hats right now. But the important thing is they're not going to be able to clear your branches and debris except in real emergency situations. Tonight we will be responding to emergencies. But to have people out in the streets trying to clean up during heavy winds with down power lines is not safe for staff, and also probably counterproductive. You can expect tonight there will be more debris in the streets, more trees falling down, and that presents a danger that says being out and about on the city streets is not the best idea tonight. So we encourage you to stay home if it's safe, and you may want to consider not staying in Sierra Madre if you're not comfortable or you don't feel that your situation is safe. I would encourage everybody who knows of a neighbor or a friend who you don't hear from very often. Not everybody has cell phones. Not everybody has wireless internet, particularly the elderly who are, or anybody, it doesn't have to be elderly, who are not able to get around very easily. Check on your neighbors and friends. We fortunately had, I think, maybe 2 medical calls last night. But that doesn't mean somebody may not be in trouble and needs help. If you know of somebody, I encourage you to please check on your neighbors and friends, and if you think they have a problem, get a hold of the right people to help. We've come through a lot of things like this before. This isn't going to be the end of us by any means, but it's going to be a mess. And it's going to take a long time for us to clean it up. The priorities of the city right now are public safety, including life safety, and then trying to get the main thoroughfares open. So those are going to be our priorities. We may not be getting the tree off of your car tonight. We probably aren't going to be getting the debris that's blocking your particular driveway. But I do want to right now thank all the volunteers out there who have come to the aid of their neighbors to help clean the streets and help clear pathways so we can get around. Like in the finest tradition of this town, many Sierra Madreans have already taken upon themselves the ability to do that. We appreciate everybody, but do it safely. And don't spend time doing it at dark with the winds, when the winds are kicked up and the power lines may be down. And I shouldn't have to mention it, but I will, that if you see a line that's down, if you don't know what it is, whether you think it's a phone line, you're not sure it might be a power line, you think it's de-energized, don't mess with it. Just don't mess with it. We've had in the newspapers recently families that have perished because of their contact with power lines. So, I know those things are obvious to many of us, but sometimes in an emergency we don't always think of the obvious, we don't always take the most basic precautions. And so I encourage you, when tonight comes, prepare for it, have all your emergency preparedness ready to go. Understanding it may be cold and you're not going to have electricity, don't start fires to get warm. Bundle up, maybe find alternative arrangements for yourself if you can. And hopefully after the next 24 hours, we're expected, I think, for this wind situation to begin to die down around tomorrow afternoon is the latest forecast. At that point, we might be able to have a better assessment of how we're going to be able to respond. And even then, it's going to take us a while to clean up everything. It just will. It's not going to happen in a day or a week. It's going to be a while before we get all this taken care of. I think I've covered all of that now, and I'd like to ask if there's any other pieces of information any other council members have.
I have a couple questions.
Okay.
What's happening with the senior lunch? Are the seniors getting over there? I understood the power was out over at Parks and Rec, and I don't know what's happening, and also what will happen tomorrow.
I can tell you today there isn't any, everyone is without power. So today there isn't, as far as I'm aware, there isn't any delivery today. I don't know about tomorrow. I will find out.
Is there some way to let them know? I don't know how to get that information out to the seniors.
Phones are down.
People are just showing up and they're finding out there's no lunch. Is that kind of what's going on right now? Okay, do we have any information on the schools? I understand PUSD is closed today, as is St. Rita's and Gooden. I'm assuming all of Arcadia.
All of Arcadia, LaSalle.
So do we know what they're planning for tomorrow?
Not yet.
Okay, so it's day to day with them. All right.
Yeah, LaSalle noted that, just because I have a kid there, that they said, you expect to show up to school tomorrow unless you hear otherwise, which means probably depending on the power and the accessibility to the facilities. Obviously, you don't want kids trying to get to school, especially walking if there are high winds and down power
They
lines.
certainly were this morning.
Yes,
They're
well,
all over. South Pass, I hear, was, yeah, they didn't,
Without power, too.
yeah, they didn't know, and kids were climbing over trees to get to school. I saw some up here, on Highland, going over trees. So the wind we're expecting is at 40 miles, or it's not the 80 or 90 that we were hearing about last night. We're thinking it's dissipating a bit.
That's what the weather
That's what-
reports are
as
at
good
this
as it-
moment. That's,
Okay,
you know, it's not exactly a science, it's probably more of an art.
all right. Okay, I think that's it. I don't know whether the police and fire have anything more they want to say, but I appreciate all the hard work, and I know Elaine has been in here since about 2 o'clock or 1:30 in the morning, so I know this because she called me from here at 2 in the morning. So I have to say thank you to all the staff for all of the hard work, and it's going to be a long haul, I think, because there are trees that are still standing, and I've seen a couple of them, and they look as though they could easily fall over depending on how, you know, the winds go, and whether we have any rain in our future. So it's going to be an interesting few weeks.
Yeah, where would people go if they are not able to stay in their homes? Do we have an evacuation center set up?
At this point, this is the only facility in town that we're aware of, City Hall, that has electrical power, heating, lights. So at this point, we've had one family come here. The other 3 homes that were damaged, they found another place to stay. But if someone doesn't have a place to stay, we're going to be open for the next 24 hours.
When the cleanup finally does start, and I realize it won't be in the next 24 hours, maybe even the 48, but if people are trying to drag large limbs away from the house or off of the roof or whatever, are we going to have the situation that we've had before where they can pile them up next to the street and then eventually crews will go through and get them and chip them? Is that what we're going to do?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll be calling in, that's what we're calling in some outside resources to go through with the large equipment.
Well, just so the people now that are trying to get them away from homes and off the roofs know what to do with them, just put them close to the street.
And we will pick them up.
and you mentioned that we had an issue with our water system not pumping, and we asked for people to conserve water. But I want also to remind people, I'm not sure if the city manager mentioned it or not, was that even though our system is pumping water now, and the reservoirs are full, so we should be okay, we ask that you do conserve water. Please mention that to your friends, because the generators have to shut down for a period of time, or they're going to get overworked and not work at all, and then they have to be restarted. So working off of generators is not a long-term solution, and so during that time, please make sure that you do conserve water. The water is safe. It's simply an electricity problem. It's not a contamination issue. But conservation is probably very important right now in that area as well. Of course, if you have an electric water heater, let me know. Electric hot water heater, then you know it's cold showers anyway, so you may conserve water.
Conserve anyway.
But you know, there's that too. So, all right. We are asked to adopt this declaration of emergency so that the governor might make resources available to us to help. Do I have a motion to do so?
Yeah, I move that we approve Resolution 11-102 for a local emergency proclamation and request for a governor's proclamation.
And I'll second it.
It's moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carries unanimously. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.